Good afternoon. My name is Kornelius Neal. I'm the pastor of St. Stephen CME Church here in Fairfield, California, located at 2301 Union Avenue. We would love to have you join us for our 10 a.m. worship service every Sunday morning. With every Sunday, with the exception of the first Sunday, service lasts for an hour, no more than an hour and 15 minutes. So if you need a church home or you need some place to visit, we would love to have you. I want to thank the NAACP for inviting me to serve as the speaker for this month's meeting. You could have called anyone or reached out to anyone else, and I'm so thankful that you reached out to me. I count it a pleasure, a luxury, and a privilege to share with you today. It is the month of June, and it is the month where we set aside that one day to celebrate all of our fathers. The one thing that comes to mind for me, my family and I have lived here in Northern California now for almost 2 years. And I'm the only one that's from California. My wife and all the kids are from Tennessee. So every summer when we lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we were there for 7 years. The kids would go down to Tennessee to visit my in-laws, the grandparents and so forth, great aunts and cousins and everything. And I was without any of my children on Father's Day. And I'm thankful that at least 2 of them will be with me this year on Father's Day. Our oldest is fully grown now, and she's out of state working, but I'm pretty sure I'll hear from her and I'll get a pretty decent gift depending on whatever I put in the cart on Amazon. But Father's Day is really a great day. It's a day that I look forward to celebrating with my children. It's a day that gives somewhat of a somber memory for me because we moved here in 2023 and my father passed away in 2023, about 4 to 5 months after we moved. And him being in California, from Southern California, was part of the motivation, at least, for us moving back to California. So I'm thankful to have been closer to him during the last stages and during the last few months of his life. But as it pertains to fatherhood, when we talk about fathers, we typically immediately turn to the Bible and we say God the Father, and we give all the examples of God the Father. He's a provider. God knows us inside and out. And we give all these comparisons between, our earthly fathers and our heavenly Father. And while that's good, I just want to take a moment to talk about fatherhood through the lens and through the tools that I learned about being a good father. Primarily thinking about the fact that my father was born in 1942. His older brother, who's still with us, was born 1939. But their father, my grandfather, died before they turned 10 years old. And so they had him for a few years, but my father really didn't have a lot of memories of his father. My grandmother was very intentional about making sure that both of her sons, being a single African-American woman in Los Angeles, California, migrating from Texas, Tyler, Texas, to be specific, but being a single African-American mother in Southern California in Los Angeles in the 50s and the 60s and so forth, she was very intentional about making sure that her 2 sons had male role models in their lives. And so there was a gentleman named Merle Porter who became a family friend. He played professional baseball for the Negro League before it was disbanded, and his wife, Miss Minnie, who took on a good leadership role and a good parental role for my uncle and my father during their childhood. And there were other men that took on some leadership for them, including some of the men that was in their Cub Scout pack when they were growing up. And so my father and my uncle really grew up, though, while having men in their life that went the extra mile to ensure that they had the right tools and the right morals and the strength and so forth to be who they needed to be as young men growing up in Los Angeles, young African-American men growing up in Los Angeles. Primarily, though, they grew up without their father. And I think about that so much because my father, while growing up without a father, although he had male role models, was an excellent father to me. He raised children. He provided. He went through hell and high water to earn money, to make money, and to make sure that we understood how to budget, all that good old stuff. One of the crowning achievements, and I mean the crowning achievements and experiences of my childhood and my adolescenthood, is the fact that, and I say this with pride, I never had to get a summer job. Not one time. I wanted a summer job. I used to want to work at Sears growing up, but I never had to get a summer job because in 1989, maybe it was 1990, my father was laid off from corporate America. He was an engineer. He worked in contracts. He was laid off from corporate America, and being a degreed individual, being a learned, smart man, a mathematician, he went into business for himself as a general contractor. And so in 1990, 1991, he opened up his own contracting company. And when summer hit, you know, of course, I'm a kid. I would go spend some time at either of my grandmother's houses. But then at the same time, when I got a little bit older, I would go to work with him. And that was the most annoying thing in the world, because all my other friends would be outside playing and so forth. And guess what? I'd be sitting around some job site with a hammer. But as I got older, and it didn't take long for me to realize it, I had all these memories that I have with my father. And my father didn't just take me to work with him to avoid someone else watching me or a babysitter or anything of that nature. He took me to work with him so that I could learn the contracting business, so that I could learn the tricks of the trade, so that I could pick up on some skills that he knew I would not pick up on any place else. And I say that with the badge of honor right now, knowing that I went to work with my father from childhood through adolescenthood, and it was really one of the best experiences that I really had. When I eulogized my father, that was one thing that I spent a lot of time on. The fact that I had to go to work with him, and then when I got to high school, all my buddies would get jobs. Being from Los Angeles, they got jobs at LAX. There was a program there. I remember in church, there was a program where a lot of the youth were able to act in this play called A Midsummer's Night, not Dream, but A Midsummer's Night Scream, where they pretty much screamed and amplified their voice in a ridiculous manner throughout the entire play. I got to go see a performance of it. I'm not a thespian. I'm not an actor. I would have probably not performed well, but I wanted to be around my friends, so I wanted to be in the play as well, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because my father needed me, and I needed to be with him during those summer days on the job sites, learning everything that he was willing to teach me. And everything hit the nail on the head, pun intended. One year, I want to say it was my sophomore, maybe my junior year of college, driving back from Jackson, Tennessee. And I called my mother and let her know I'm about 100 miles out. I'll be home in about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, depending on traffic. Then I called my father, tell him the exact same thing. I said, "Hey, Dad, I already talked to Mom. I'll be home." He says, "No, don't go home. Come by the job site." And he gave me the address. And the trunk of my car, back of my car, the passenger seat of my car is filled with all of my stuff that I had in my dorm room. My TV, computer, clothes, printer, all that good old stuff. My refrigerator, all that stuff was in my car. But I didn't go home first. I went to the job site because that's where my father wanted me to be. And to this day, don't tell anybody that I told you this, but till this day, there's nothing in the house that I can't fix. Why? Because I learned so many lessons from my father. And with that being said, I'm 42 years old. I have 3 children. The oldest graduated from Penn State last May. We're so proud of her. The 2 youngest are going into high school this year. But one thing that I can say is that I was anxious to become a father, anxious to become a parent. I never had a moment where I was nervous about entering into parenthood. Not one time. From the moment I knew that I was going to be a dad, case closed, I'm done. I'm ready. Can the child come any sooner? I am ready for it. And so me serving as a father to 3 children, I love it. And I remember watching, I think it was Tool Time. I think that was the name of the show. I remember watching Tool Time, and the characters' names are escaping me right now. But the wife's name was Jill. Tim the Toolman Taylor. There we go. So Tim the Toolman Taylor was a masculine man, and he had his own show on television, on the show, where they would fix things and so forth. That he would go out of his way to do crazy things, like put a bigger motor in the saw, and it would screw up everything. Stuff like that. He was also a manly man on the show, and I think his wife's name was Jill. And so Tim was together they had 3 children, and Tim was always trying to parent all 3 children, all 3 boys, mind you, the exact same way. He was trying to parent the older son, who was more athletic, the same way he was parenting the younger son, who was more so of an introvert and really didn't want to be around people too much. The same way he was trying to parent the middle child, who was a little bit smoother and so forth, and got all the girls and was almost in competition with the older son. And so this was a thing on the show where Tim was always trying to parent all 3 sons the exact same way. And I don't know how old I was when I saw this episode, but his wife pulled him off to the side one day and said, "You can't parent all your children the exact same way." Why? Because all of the children are not the same. And although you are who you are, you can't give your children the exact same thing every single time, because kid 1 may not need the same thing that kid 2 needs. Kid 3 may need to be reprimanded or consequences differently than kid 1 or kid 2 does. And so with that being said, we have to know our children. And not only do we have to know our children, but we owe it to society to know other children that need a parental figure, that need a father figure in their lives. I was just talking to a buddy of mine. His name is Tony. And he has a neighbor who's a young man. And that young man has made some good decisions, but he's also made some poor decisions. Tony is about to be 68 years old. And he wants to take this young man up under his wing, mentor him, put him in the right place, help him, guide him in the right direction. And so his children are already grown, but he feels the need and the calling by God to reach back and help out somebody else. And so he has to get to know this kid and to know what this kid needs, what this kid requires, and learn how to relate to this kid in a way that he may not have needed to with his actual child. I know with me having 3 children, our oldest, she always tells her younger brother and sister, as often as she can, "You guys have it easy," because they say the oldest child has it the hardest. And that's true. We were far more strict with the oldest than we are with the younger 2, and it shows. But she always lets them know that they have it a lot easier than she had it, and that she paved the way for them. And to some degree, that's true. But in doing so, the other part to that equation is my wife and I, we take the time to get to know our children. And we didn't parent the oldest the same way that we parent the 2 youngest. They're only 11 months apart, the 2 youngest, a boy and a girl. And so get to know your children, know how to parent them. We can't parent all of our children the same way. One of the most pivotal things I remember seeing, I think it was like 2001, maybe 2002 or 3, when the Tupac documentary came out. Tupac is known as a prolific author, poet. He wrote screenplays. He was an actor. I mean, he was just a phenomenal entertainer, period, inside and out. But he was known really for his violence and for his run-ins with the law and so forth, almost as much as he was known for his music. That's really unfortunate. But in his documentary that came out, he voiced his own documentary, because even in the 90s, he walked around with a camera all the time. And even in that documentary, he said his life would have been different. It would have been different, vastly different, had his father been around. That's it right there. His life would have been different had his father been around. He didn't say his life would have been different because he would have had some name brand shoes or, name brand clothes, this, that, and the other material things. He just said my life would have been different had my father been around. Then most recently on Club Shay Shay, Damon Wayans was being interviewed. And the question came up, how important was your father to the family? A very pivotal question, because within the Wayans family, all of the brothers, Damon, Sean, Marlon, and even the sister, Kim, those are the ones that we're familiar with. Each one of them give Keenan, the older brother, the credit for their family being where they are now. He was the one that left New York to come to California and establish himself, and then later on his family in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry. But it was a very pivotal question when he said, well, what role did your father play in the family? A very important one, because, their mother, the Wayne's mother, she recently died within the last few years. Damon gave one of the best answers I've ever heard. One of the best answers I've ever heard. I would encourage a lot of people to repeat this. Damon said, well, the best thing that my father did for us, because they had 10 children and they lived in the projects, and he didn't make a lot of money. But Damon said the best thing that my father did for us was he came home. He came home every single night. He didn't make a lot of money, but he came home. We didn't have enough money for food for everybody to have their choice, but he came home. They had to share clothing. They had to share shoes. They had to share beds. Some of them were on the floor. They had 10 children. And so with the parents, that's 12. But he said the most important thing that his father did for their family was he came home. In essence, their father spent time with the family. And that's all any family, any child, anyone wants. You can earn a lot of money. You can earn little money. You can be quick with your words, finesseful, make everyone laugh, and so forth. But the thing that every child wants, that every family needs, is a father that comes home. And so we're in June. Father's Day is a few days away, a couple of weeks away. We want to salute all of the fathers, every single one of them that comes home. You come home dirty, you still came home. You come home tired, still came home. You could come home frustrated, but you still came home. And that's important. That speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. I know for me, my father was born in 1942. And so one of the things that he and I both looked forward to, literally, was the moment where he would be twice my age. And we got there. So my father was 40. My mother was 37 when I was born, and my father was 40 when I was born. And so we both were waiting until the point to where I was 40 years old and he was 80 years old. And I remember when he visited the church that I pastored, New Destiny CMB Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he stood up and spoke when we acknowledged the visitors and so forth. And he said, you guys want to know how your pastor's going to look in 40 years? Just look over here at me, because he looks just like me. And everybody erupted and everybody laughed. But my father was born in 1942. And he was a Vietnam veteran. He's cut from a different cloth. Those that are born in that era are different. America was different then. And those who served in the military, specifically, or rather particularly those that served in the Vietnam War, I think he did 2 tours. It changes your DNA. It changes your mental setup. And so that experience, it changed him. According to my uncle, my father was a little bit more joyful, filled with a little bit more laughter, a little bit more fun. But when he came back from Vietnam, he was different. Of course, that was before my lifetime. But the thing about that era is that, men typically didn't hug their sons. Those that was born in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. I don't know about the 60s or so much. But, they were known to give their sons and give a handshake. Look me in the eye, give me a handshake, a firm handshake, and all that good old jazz. My father and I really didn't give a warm embrace or a hug until he got older and until he was a little bit sick. And at that point, the physical touch meant a lot more then than it did before. And so while I teach my son the same thing, look another person in the eye, male or female, give a firm and sturdy handshake to whomever you're greeting. But I also tell my son and, my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter, all 3 kids, one very important thing. Daddy always needs his hugs and kisses. And I tell my son this all the time because I'm 6'2". 6'3" when I have on shoes. And my son's like 5'10" now, so he's almost up there with me. And I'm like, man, you got all this bass in your voice. I love to hear the bass in his voice. I like to see the mustache come in. But I say, dude, it doesn't matter how big or how tall or how much bass you ever have in your voice. You're never going to be too big to give daddy some hugs and kisses. And I love all my children so much. Even though my oldest daughter, I owe her some hugs and kisses. She's all the way in Chicago, Illinois. Been there for almost a year now. But she knows when she comes back to visit, I got to make up for almost 6 months of no hugs and no kisses. And so the one thing that I would impress upon all men, when it comes to parenthood, when it comes to fatherhood, don't just rest in the eye contact and the handshake, but give your children hugs and kisses. Embrace them and let them embrace you. Normalize that. Make sure that they know that it's okay to embrace their fathers. We don't have to have a stern face, a stone cold face all the time. We don't have to be the hard people that maybe we were taught to be by previous generations. It's okay to soften it up a little bit. I give my kids hugs and kisses all the time. And even right now, as I'm recording this video, I can't wait to go in the house. I know they're not asleep. They're wide awake. And give them some hugs and kisses and let them know that I love them and that I had a good day and that I hope they've had a great day too. Thank you again for inviting me to share during this meeting. Been here for a couple of years now, but I can't speak in this fashion and not join. So look for my application, my membership, not just for me, but for my entire family to hit soon. Thank you again. You all have a great day. God bless.